Bubba Wallace has returned to NASCAR following his 1-week suspension after taking out Kyle Larson at Las Vegas, returns to Martinsville Speedway to complete the final 2 races of the 2022 season for the 45 car in 2311 racing. Now, as expected, when Bubba were to return to the racetrack, he'd be swarmed with reporters, and that's exactly what happened. He had a short interview with multiple reporters earlier today, and we're going to give you some updates and basically some bits of information about what Bubba said in his interview and his interaction with Kyle Larson this weekend. Now, on Sunday at Homestead, Bubba did post a picture saying, quote, taking some humble pie for his actions at Vegas and taking a direction. Basically, it was kind of like 2311's command or control center, taking a look at all the race data of what goes on behind the scenes at a race in North Carolina. But like I said earlier today, he spoke to the media about what took place at Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, I totally accept the penalty and the repercussions that came from my actions. I talked to O'Donnell and I talked to Phelps, and I said, hey, I'm good with being the example, as if we can keep this consistent moving forward, because it's happened multiple times this year, and something that may still continue to happen, for other drivers down the road. I definitely learned my lesson. But we have to be consistent with this, no matter if it's here at Martinsville or if it's at Daytona or Talladega. We got to keep it consistent across all the boards and all the series. So that was the conversation. It was a good conversation. I mean, sitting there watching that, I tweeted out humble pie. I mean, I hated not being in that race and knew we were excited. That was like one of those races that was circled on the schedule, right? Our Toyotas have been really strong at the mile-and-a-half stuff, so really love running Homestead. So I was bummed, legit bummed that I wasn't racing, but I had to put that aside and still help the team go out and grow and continue to gain speed with those 2 drivers.
So yeah, I'm glad that he talked to O'Donnell, Steve Phelps, and agreed with the penalty. I'm pretty sure everyone, even himself, knew that what he did deserved a suspension. I'm glad that he mentioned about that. Now, a precedent has been set. Now we have to expect consistency from what took place in Vegas. Any future incidents, doesn't matter if it's Cup, Xfinity, or trucks, something like this happens again, has to end with the same result. So hopefully a precedent has been set for the future, but knowing NASCAR, it's very fishy. We're just got to more wait and see. So I'm glad that he addressed that, accepted the penalty, didn't question whether or not it was too much or too light. I thought the punishment fit the crime, and talked about how he should deal with future situations like this, as well as the reaction from not only Denny, but Michael Jordan.
Think before you do, and in this sport, it's the heat of the moment type things that get to you. So seeing that, going back and looking from a 10,000 foot view, definitely could have handled everything way different, and been in a different spot. I put myself in a bad light. I put our team in a bad light. Our sponsors. It's just something that I'm not proud of. But moving forward, you're not allowed to make that mistake again. Yeah, they were understanding of the heat of the moment type things, but they were very adamant on how we need to handle those 5 seconds later. You need to think, like I said earlier, think before you do. That was the biggest thing, but they still support me, and we're here, and we just got to go out and continue to build this team up.
Which, I mean, I'm not surprised by this. I mean, MJ and Denny are always going to stick by Bubba. They're going to stick by his side. He's their driver. They're going to stick by him no matter what. So it's not surprising by that part. I understand, again, I understand the situation why Bubba was upset, but like he mentioned, you got to think before you do. It's okay to be mad at Larson for what he did, but you just can't do what he did, right, hooking a guy at 150, 170 miles an hour. But I'm glad that he addressed that. It was that part that I talked about in my last video, is how we're going to see Bubba react to future situations like this. Because more than likely, he's going to be in a situation where a driver pisses him off or makes him mad in some way, shape, or form. And it's going to be interesting in future situations how he deals with this. There was that saying, think before you do, or think before you speak. This is a perfect example of it. From this point on, he has to remind himself, think before you do things, just because, you can't just go by your gut or how you feel. You have to go use your brain, think about it, hey, let's not take this action. Let's take a step back and let's calm down for us. Let cooler heads prevail before you go out and start doing stuff like what we saw with Larson. And speaking of Larson, he also talks about him at the end of the interview.
For the record, I have talked to Larson. We had a great conversation this week, and I think the best thing for us is we both understood where our frustrations were, and moving forward and how we both could handle those situations better.
Now, this took place before practice and qualifying. After qualifying, Bubba Wallace qualified 24th, while Larson qualified on the pole. And during the media center after qualifying, Larson talked about Bubba Wallace.
Yeah, no, it was great to have that talk, and I said the same thing. I came downstairs and told my wife that Bubba and I had a great conversation. So I thought it went really well, and I think we both moved on from it really fast. So was good to have a talk, good to just kind of talk over the frustrations and mistakes on both of our parts, and kind of move on and forget about it and get back to racing. And I feel like we've raced really well together in the past, so hope I don't make any more mistakes and we can continue to race good.
So this is how I viewed it. If Bubba has moved on, and especially if Larson has moved on, then all of us should move on from it as well. I know there's still people that are going to be stuck in their ways. They're still going to be complaining about how Bubba should be suspended for the rest of the year or all that crap. Both are moved on. Larson's moved on from it, which, to be honest, the only one that we should be listening about is Larson. Whatever Larson says, that's how we go with it. If Larson's moved on, then everyone else should move on from the situation. Yes, it happened. Yes, it's bad, but it's in the past now. You move on to the next race. And Bubba and Larson, they've said that they're good friends off the racetrack, so I'm assuming that even though this may be a bump into how those two act with each other, they're going to be fine. They're going to move on with it. They're going to acknowledge it, but it's unfortunate what happened, but I mean, they're not going to let it affect each other for the rest of their lives. But a bit of advice for Bubba, you got those Beat headphones on, make sure you put that on full blast, because especially at Martinsville, where we are in America, in Virginia, he is going to get hailed with boos on Sunday. So I recommend you put those Beat headphones on at full blast to cancel out the noise. And finally, some quick news on the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Parker Kligerman. Parker Kligerman has been one of those drivers that deserves to be in good equipment. If he had the chance in top equipment, he can be able to do some real good things. He's going to get a chance. With Big Machine Records, that racing that they have the number 48 car, drove for them at Talladega a couple of weeks ago. He won in the Truck Series at Mid-Ohio a couple months ago, has been granted an opportunity to race for the Xfinity Series Championship next season. This will be the first time Big Machine Racing will be competing full-time in the Xfinity Series, and they already have a win under their belt with Tyler Reddick, I believe, at Texas this year. They have that affiliation with RCR. We know how good RCR is in the Xfinity Series, so even though they may not be the best team on the grid, they are in some really decent equipment, and we know Parker Kligerman, in my opinion, is one of those drivers that can get more out of the equipment that he's in, so I'm very excited to see what he can do in 2023. He's always been, like I said, one of those drivers that I've wished that would have a full-time ride or an opportunity to compete in top equipment or around decent equipment. Had that one time with Brad Keselowski Racing, but that didn't last long. Also with Kyle Busch Motorsports in the Xfinity Series, that also didn't last long. So now he's going to have a stable team in 2023, really be able to show what he can do in the Xfinity Series. And that's it for this episode of Inside Lines. A quick little update regarding the whole Bubba Larson situation, because we were waiting about how those two would communicate couple weeks after the incident. So I'm personally am very glad that those two have been able to get together, talk about it, bury the hatchet and move on from the situation. I'm nervous about tomorrow because we know how horrible the racing was in May or in April. So I'm very, very worried. Got some interesting storylines. You got Chase Briscoe starting in third place. He could potentially be a spoiler depending on how things go. Byron, who won here back in April, starting in 26th place. Absolutely horrible qualifying start for him, especially where it looks like more than likely track position is going to be as important as it is for F1 in Monaco. So very interesting to see how it happens on Sunday, but I have a feeling it's going to be one boring race. Hopefully I'm wrong. That's it for this episode. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content. Until next time, my name is Jett from MDK. Thanks for watching.